Welcome to the Sandersonian Institute of Cosmere Studies, where there's always another secret.
Hello and greetings. This is episode 156 of the Sandersonian Institute of Cosmere Studies. The date is February 26, 2024. I'm Jordan, and I'm joined, as always, by my quackered co-host, Amy and Bill. But today, we have a special guest who definitely is not quackered. He is the man who pitched this very episode title to us. He did this at Dragonsteel 2023. He's an actual medical doctor who specializes in trauma and critical care, and he's a great friend of the show. Please welcome Dr. Roger Wong. Roger, how's it going?
I'm good. How are you, Jordan?
Oh, I can't complain. Just a reminder.
I'm good too, even though you didn't ask.
No, I didn't. No.
Amy, how are you doing?
I'm doing great.
Okay,
I had ice cream. It was good.
I wish I had ice cream. Just a reminder, everyone, we are not a spoiler-free podcast, so if you haven't read everything in the Cosmere, this is your warning. So, read before you show up here. You can watch us live over at youtube.com/Cosmere Studies. We record episodes every other Monday night, starting at 7:30 p.m. Pacific, 10:30 p.m. Eastern. So join us and take an active part in the discussion. I want to also just thank Roger for joining us.
Thanks for having me. This is the first time I think I've been on a podcast, so it'll be interesting.
Yeah, don't worry. We'll treat you well. Probably.
We're excited to have you.
No, this is normally we thank our patrons. Roger is one of our patrons, so thanks to Roger first.
Yes, indeed.
He is one of the main people who make the podcast possible. If you would like to be like Roger, be an upstanding citizen like Roger, go to patreon.com/Cosmere Studies and become a member. Even $1 helps. If you donate at least $5 or more one time each year, you get access to our Kolos Head Munching Day holiday cards. Roger's received those. Those are quality cards, aren't they?
Absolutely.
Thank goodness you said that. I put a lot of pressure on him. I am so glad he agreed. All right.
Yeah, you get our signature on everyone, and you get Rosie's paw pad stamp on there too.
It's very important. And plus, you always get custom art every single year.
It's true.
It's the best custom art. I also want to point out, patrons, we have a very special thanks for today. Today is officially the last episode of season 6 of SICS.
So that is today.
That is today.
Right.
So open up a brewski, or in my case, a Diet Dr. Pepper cream soda, 0 sugar.
Water bottles, what I
I'll
have.
have
It wasn't
a
prepped.
water ski.
Yeah,
Hey, water ski's a thing.
It is true. But yeah,
also, Jordan, I want to just point out that you opened up this podcast with your stream intro.
I did, 100%.
which was fun.
Yeah, look, old habits die hard. So 6 years of SICS. Got any special memories you guys want to throw out there?
Oh gosh. Honestly, I think my favorite memories still are having Isaac and Kara on the show.
Mm-hmm. Calling Mom Stewart. That was fun.
Oh, calling Mom Stewart was wonderful.
Yeah.
What about you, Roger?
I'm trying to think. I can't really think of anything that comes to mind. I unfortunately tend to listen to you guys on a drive somewhere, so sometimes I end up forgetting.
Oh, no worries. Can I pander?
Definitely, you should pander.
One of my favorite memories, and this is actually very true, was meeting Roger, because he is the first listener that we actually met in the wild. So that was kind of a cool feeling.
He gave us cookies. It's even better.
I forgot he gave us good cookies.
Yeah, so I got to have one of his cookies to use when I was dressed up as Marcy, and I was like, I've got a cookie. And this is
nice.
It's all part of the cosplay.
Yes.
Are y'all excited about this year's Dragonsteel Con?
Oh yes.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I'm intimidated though.
I'm wearing my
because of-
Dragonsteel 23 shirt right now.
Because he said that, I'm going to go a little bit out of order than normal, and let's jump to Sanderson news.
Okay.
Oh boy.
Because as part of Sanderson news, Brandon revealed that on May 7th, that's when you're going to be able to get your tickets to the convention. And you definitely should do it. Roger can attest. It's awesome, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
It is definitely a great place to be for Cosmere fans.
And I have a feeling this year is going to be nuts.
Mm-hmm. It's gonna be 3 days instead of 2 this time too.
In Stormlight 5.
So big.
It's going to be pretty big.
I can't wait to see what cosplays we get out of this.
Oh man.
But
Oh,
all right. In other Sanderson news, Stormlight 5 is on its third revision. Is at 50%.
Bing.
He's still targeting the last day of March to complete it. Skyward Flight, their revisions at 25%. The biggest news I thought was Brandon announced he's going to be releasing a picture book.
I know.
I have already pre-ordered my copy.
Oh wow, the most boring book ever.
I am not surprised.
I kind of love the concept of this.
Yeah, the concept, if you don't know, it's the pictures don't match the text. Like the text portrays the most boring thing in the world, but the image makes it look epic and insane. Like the one he showed was like, it's like, I can't remember the name. It's like so and so was sitting in a chair, but you see the chair is like falling through the sky. And it's just like, okay.
I'm going to say his name is Ash so that we can say Ash fell from the sky.
He also said this could lead to the Hoyd picture books, the oft-rumored Hoyd picture books.
Which is wonderful, too.
Indeed. He also published an interesting video. It was pretty short, called Why Crowdfunding, just sort of going into the reasons why Dragonsteel uses the crowdfunding model. I thought it was kind of interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And in the final news, the Stone Words Say the Words has been posted. All I think all we have left is Bondsmiths.
Yeah, that's the last
probably.
one. Yeah, having painted the 10 glyphs, yeah, that's the order they go in. I made a set for my friend, and I stared at those symbols over and over and over and over and over and over and over, and got the order. It was a little ridiculous. So, yeah, Bondsmith is the.
I have to say that I haven't watched all of them. I think I've only watched the very first one.
They're really kind of fun. They're pretty short,
Yeah.
so it's pretty easy to just watch them all.
Plus, you get to see what the plushies are going to look like if you watch the video.
Yes.
Oh, that's right. I have to look at those.
Which is exciting.
Which that's actually our next episode. So we're going to be covering the Say the Word stuff. So,
Jordan, there is one video you did miss.
oh, did I miss one?
The
What
one
was
about
that?
the Prime editions.
Oh, right. I
oh,
did forget
yes.
that one. Yeah.
So with
That was interesting.
with Way of
I
Kings
write that down.
Prime and the upcoming Dragonsteel Prime, when they did Way of Kings Prime, they actually spoke to their print representative asking about materials for the books because everybody's going to want a matching set, and they said, "Is this material going to be in stock for a long time?" And they said, "Oh yeah, I don't see this going out of stock ever." And of course, then like just a couple years later, it's gone and has been completely discontinued. And so moving forward, it's going to be a slightly different material. They matched it as close as possible to Way of Kings Prime as they could, but it's not going to match up exactly. But future printings of Way of Kings Prime are going to have this new material that's been around since I think they said like the 60s or something.
So they said it was close to their Secret Project covers too. So so they know it's good.
Mm-hmm.
But it's one of those things. The more we learn, the more we find out the weirdness
Of the printing industry.
of supply chains, and
Mm-hmm.
I do not know how Kara manages that.
Well, and Brandon is very transparent
you.
about that.
I thought so too.
Congratulations, Jordan. You can now say you've been confused with Brandon Sanderson.
Yes. Mark that off on the Xbox achievement list. All right. I feel weird introducing myself on this. Bill, ask me how things are going with the...
Hey, Jordan. So we're talking about, we're doing not announcements, but yeah. How is the YouTube hourly count, the Push to 3,000?
Yeah. Push to 3,000.
Yeah, push to 3,000. We are at 2,971 hours. That puts us at 99.03%.
We have
to the goal.
21 hours to go.
So, I am going to put something on the table to try and push us over the total. Something we've been doing over on my podcast has been video game 20 questions. If we can go over the 3,000 marker before the next episode, not this Monday, but the Monday after that, I'll host a Cosmere 20 questions.
Okay.
On our off Monday. We'll host it right here on the channel. And we've had a ton of fun with the video game 20 questions. Bill's tried it.
Oh, it's fun.
We should see if we can get you on TikTok too.
And it's funny you should mention that. I have things, so don't worry about it.
Okay.
We'll talk after the stream.
Okay.
But yeah, I have some stuff for that.
Okay.
Oh, there is one other Sanderson news thing that Libralita in chat is really begging us to mention.
Oh, goodness.
I don't know. I don't have any guesses on this. Are y'all aware of the whole 631?
Yes.
Conspiracy.
I was reading posts on Reddit about this. Is there a video or something that I haven't seen?
There are several videos.
It's one of his announcements or something like that, and he's talking about they're gonna ship out 631 of something, and I can't remember what it was. And he says it very deliberately, and then there's a clock, and it's one of those flip ones, with the numbers. And it has 631, and then it has 6 books and 3 books and 1 book.
Yeah, there are books that are organized by color, and there's 6 of one, and then 3 of one, and then 1 of one.
It's blue, red, 3, 6, blue. Oh, sorry, 6 blue, 3 red, and 1 white or something like that. And it's all these people are oh, it's there. Yeah. The Cosmere Steve, he has a video about it, and he's what is 631? It's pins. Thank you. Yeah, I was I don't remember what the thing was, but I don't know. I've never been good at guessing conspiracy things, and that's what this very much feels like.
It's clearly he's announcing that something's going on in the 631 area code, which puts it in Suffolk County, New York, on Long Island.
My guess, I think the 2 best suggestions are either it's going to be video number 631, which he is rapidly approaching, or it's going to be on July 1st, because there is no June 31st.
Yeah.
Which would put it at July 1st.
So I don't know.
I love crap like this. As a lover of Gravity Falls, this is my jam.
Maybe July 1st is maybe more relevant, because I don't know why it would be anything special the other thing.
Yeah, I don't.
Maybe a huge announcement on video
on episode 631.
Mm-hmm.
Who knows? I am not a good guesser of that.
Ooh, maybe maybe video 631 will be a groundbreaking of Dragonsteel Village.
Maybe that's the address.
I can look up with my theory of where it is.
Jordan has a very, very defensible theory.
We talked about it.
Yeah.
Didn't we?
I can't remember if it was on here. Was it on here?
I don't remember where it was. But yeah.
Anyway. All right. Bill, you're going to have to hit a sound effect here. Because it's time for the
Cosmere Thing of the Week.
All right. Bill, why don't you tell us about this?
So this is one that I just came across on Reddit, and it's freaking amazing. It wasn't posted on Reddit by the original artist, but we do have a link to their what's it called?
Website?
ArtStation account.
Yep.
So it's a picture of Kaladin versus the Pursuer in Rhythm of War. And I'm trying to remember the artist's name.
Joshua Carrenca, I think it is.
Yeah, Joshua Carrenca or Carrenca. I'm not sure exactly how it's pronounced. I'm not sure what origin the name is, but his art is pretty incredible, and this image is just shockingly gorgeous.
It looks like Kaladin's fighting one of the blight forms of Ganon.
A little bit.
I could see that.
Void Blight.
It's pretty.
I had to bring up the YouTube stream to watch this.
But yeah, it's kind of incredible.
All right. Well, excellent art. I think it's time for us to get into today's episode.
Yes. So, did you already explain why Roger's on with us?
Did you no, we did not. Okay. So, Roger, could you give the people listening a little bit into your background?
So I went to medical school, graduated in 2008 from medical school. I did my residency in emergency medicine and then a fellowship in trauma and critical care. Right now I work in an ICU, taking care of patients specifically after they have surgery.
So you're an actual doctor, actually dealing with, trauma people. And triage. And yeah, so Roger actually pitched this idea to us at Dragonsteel. Another reason you all should definitely come and visit us. It'd be great. So especially after we just got done with the Way of Kings last episode, I think this is a very topical episode. The first thing you pitched to us, actually, you said you want to talk about Rotspren. You said it was interesting how Brandon put it into the Cosmere and your thoughts on it.
Yeah, because technically I would say that if you read the Cosmere and specifically the Way of Kings, the level of technology that they have is before we actually knew about germs and what caused illness. And the Rotspren in the books is kind of like a surrogate for that, right? So it's not the actual germs, but the presence of Rotspren is kind of indicating that there is something there, some bacteria or something that's causing an infection. And then on top of that, to have it be afraid of water. So one of the things that if you get a cut or any kind of injury, the first thing that we do if you come to the hospital is just wash it out really, really good. And even if you're at home, the best thing to do would be just to put it under like running water for like 10 minutes. That's better than Neosporin. That's better than anything else that you could do for it, is just like flushing it out.
Yeah. I think this is a good example of Brandon doing unreliable narrator, because it sounds like the prevailing theory in world is that Rotspren are what caused the infections, but then you kind of figure out over time it's not that they cause it, but they are attracted to to that sort of thing. But
and that makes sense given every other type of spren tends to behave that way. Although there are a few exceptions where the spren do affect stuff, because like we have the Lux spren, which actually do cause there to be some sort of bond that creates less pull on great shells and stuff.
Yeah,
but I'm just saying they don't it's really cool because they don't technically replace germs in this world. They're just sort of a more visual indication that the germs are there.
Right. So it's like they know about germs, but they don't know about them. They just know that they're there because of the Rotspren. It's it would be interesting to know kind of what they're thinking in terms of, when they see the Rotspren, do they think it's causing disease, or do they think it's just like a marker for disease?
Yeah, well, even when the way Liren describes it, I think Liren brings up they aren't sure if Rotspren are attracted to it or cause it. I think when he's teaching Kaladin about that. Speaking of Liren, he's obviously a doctor. What do you think about him as a doc? Like, how is he as a doctor? Do you think he's doing pretty well, or?
I think, especially given the time, like the era that they're in, I think he's doing what you would expect a doctor for a small town to be. And it's interesting that he's the surgeon, right? He's not the town doctor, the village doctor. He's the village surgeon. And in those times, surgeons were more technicians than doctors. So I think Brandon is kind of mixing the two a little bit in the sense that he is really the village doctor because that's where everybody goes to for anything, whether it's something that requires surgery or not. But they call him a surgeon because that's just what they call him there.
Well, and I like how Brandon also brings in the historical fear of practitioners of medicine, the people who look into the dark places inside us that no one is supposed to see. And so that the village is a little bit leery of him because he's delving into stuff that is kind of the unknown. It's the forbidden arts, because if you look back at a lot of the early surgeons, many of them to even study anatomy had to rob graves, and it freaked people out because
or pay people who robbed graves
right
to get the body. Yeah, so either way.
Or pay assassins to get people.
That's too far.
So Assassin's Creed wasn't actual lore of Leonardo da Vinci?
Probably not.
No,
I hope not.
Well, the other thing is that he talks to Kaladin about caring and you have to kind of separate yourself from the emotions of the job, which I think actually applies in modern medicine too. I think we have to separate ourselves when we're doing something, and if you see somebody die or you have a patient that dies, you kind of have to move on. And do your best for the next one. And it's tough because emotionally you are still there. It's not easy to turn it off. As you can see from Kaladin, he has a hard time letting that go in a lot of cases, or knowing kind of when to stop. In a lot of cases, I think. And even Liren mentions it to him about him being too soft.
Care too much.
Yeah. I actually studied pre-nursing. I made it all the way through all the pre-nursing courses because I was planning on doing that. There were several reasons that I didn't end up going through with it, but one of the reasons, this isn't the main reason, but one of the things was one day I shadowed a friend of mine who was a nurse at a hospital, and we had to go into a room and prepare a patient who'd passed away. And I just remember being very, very affected by this person I'd never met. And it was just sort of a feeling of maybe this isn't for me type of thing.
It's not so much as you're caring too much as so much as you have to separate the caring from the job.
Yeah.
You still have a job to do, and those that care actually do a much better job. But you can't let it kind of take over.
Yeah, like the triage moment when Liren has to decide which of the two patients to focus on, which one can I save, which has the better chance, and it's tough.
Well, and especially in that situation, because that's a very interesting situation, because this is also the man who is in charge of him, and he has to make that call. And even though he knows he'll hate him for it, he has to make that call. And that's Liren's really good at that, at being in the moment and being the doctor in the moment. And because from a personal standpoint, the smarter thing would have been to say you couldn't save either, and let them both go
in the most cold.
Yeah. Well, because he would have been perfectly within. It's like he ordered me to save his son. Normally, I wouldn't have done that, but he's the Lord. I have to do what he says. And he totally could have gotten away with it, but his scruples medically wouldn't let him do it.
And
I'd say that would be him caring, right? He's caring about his patient beyond that would benefit him.
Yeah. I also remember there was a line from Kaladin where he's thinking and noticing stuff, and he's noticing when Rashon is getting sewn back up, and he's like, that's his femoral artery right there. And he kind of gets a feeling that, like, if he hadn't been there, it would have been even harder for Liren to not just nick that and then fix all of his problems.
You could tell Liren did think.
That the temptation was there, but Kaladin was watching him and he couldn't do it.
Well, and it also highlights part of the problem with those old systems of governance is, if you treat someone bad, eventually you're at someone else's mercy. And Rashon's lucky that Liren has enough, enough integrity that he decided, no, I won't do what's good for me. I'll do what I'm supposed to do.
Yeah.
On some level, you can see where Kaladin gets this whole drive to do what you're supposed to do, even though Kaladin interprets it in a different way, which leads to Book 4's entire thing of maybe, we're both following what we think we need to. It's right. Well, I can't remember the line. It's something like, maybe it's right for us.
Yeah.
Like, is that it? So Liren has this whole pretty strong pacifistic strength. Is that something you see a lot of in your profession?
No, I think that's more his personality than it has to do probably with the profession. I mean, I don't think we're taught that in school to be pacifists. I mean, there's plenty of doctors.
I was just interested to see if it attracted them more so.
It's basically taking the Hippocratic Oath to the next level of the first do no harm, but that's his own interpretation of it.
Come to think of it, that could very well have, like, first do no harm isn't a bad oath for an order.
Yeah.
It's like, it's not quite the overarchingness of a normal oath, but wouldn't be a bad Dustbringer oath, actually.
I am so excited to...
Because they're all about self-mastery and, understanding and reining themselves in. That's not a bad... Well, I guess it'd be the second oath, not the first, but yeah.
First order oath.
Yeah.
But then it wouldn't feel weird. They wouldn't have healing as one of their surges. But...
They're supposed to be kind of the offensive order, right?
Well, they're also the tinkerers.
Yeah. All their oaths are supposedly about self-mastery because they're the ones capable of the most destruction.
Yeah, there's a line about them from way back when, and it's like, yep, they're really good at just, or maybe from the Say the Words videos, and it's like, yep, they're good at taking down bridges or walls or whatever else, and just poof, they can just.
But they're also the ones that tend to build the walls and the bridges.
Honestly, I feel like if she hadn't become a bondsmith, Navani would have been a prime Dustbringer.
Which is, I would not have thought, like, way before, but the more I find out about the Dustbringers, I'm like, I could see that.
I gotta know, did your husband Josh come out as a Dustbringer? Because he's a Dustbringer type.
I could see
that.
No,
he's a Windrunner.
Okay. It's just like, because he does love to tinker.
I have a suspicion that a lot of people, when they get married, become more Windrunner because it's like, I'm protecting my family.
I could see that, yeah. Like, Windrunner was pretty high up on my list the first time I took the test, too. But then I'm also not great at being offensive-ish, and I think that was what kind of made me more edge dancery.
More healer.
Yeah.
So something else that was interesting medically, that wasn't something I originally thought of as such, but rereading Way of Kings makes me think about it. Fire moss. Like, it's actually a drug that's used to help negate pain and such, but it's also highly addictive. And Liren talks about how he hates using it for that reason. Is that something you run into? I mean, obviously you're dealing with people who have just been through stressful situations. Like, is it similar, like trying to figure out how to manage their pain while also trying to not get them addicted to something?
It's actually a big deal in kind of medicine right now because I don't know if you've heard about the opioid epidemic.
Yep.
So it started out because, I mean, years ago, we talk about like vital signs. So it's like blood pressure, heart rate, your respiratory rate, and there's 4 of them. And then there was this big campaign that said pain is the 5th vital sign, which basically meant that if a patient came in and they were complaining of pain, then you had to treat their pain, and it was a priority because you would think it at the level of a vital sign is what they're saying.
Mhm.
So that led to the use of a lot of pain medications, particularly narcotic pain medications, and that led to people getting addicted to them. Now, if you came into the hospital and I gave you a dose of medication for pain that was a narcotic, or I sent you home with a few pills of it,
Mhm.
you're not going to get addicted to it just from a few doses. If you have pain that persists, usually it's somebody that had like a surgery and they're having a lot of pain, and then it persists for days, weeks, months, and at that point they start getting more and more pain medication beyond what would be kind of the pain that they would have from the surgery, and they're now taking it for other reasons,
Mhm.
and that's when they get addicted. Fire moss, when I read about that, I mean, it sounded a lot like heroin to me.
Mhm.
And heroin we don't use for pain, but it's in the same category as other medications
Right.
that are pain medications. But it's highly addictive. That's the opiate that people use for abuse. That's probably the biggest one. And fire moss is similar to that, except that fire moss is also used medicinally in
Well,
the
and
chart.
that makes sense given their era. Like, we used to use opium,
Yeah.
for pain and such. And as time went on, we figured out better medications that weren't as addictive and destructive.
Right.
Yeah. I also was thinking of morphine as another kind of equivalent to
Mhm.
fire moss a little bit from like the little bit I've seen of like World War II shows and movies. So I don't know how accurate those are, but that's kind of something that also felt equivalent to me.
Yeah, it's the same category of drug.
Well,
It's pretty much the same.
well, the
Okay.
other thing, and I don't know if there is like because I don't understand. I'm not a heroin lore connoisseur, which we can't put that as the title. We will get flagged if we do that, guys. But the like the fact that you use it by rubbing it between your fingers, like that'd be the other real hard part about like using it as a medication is you're relying on the patient to know, okay, how much are you supposed to do this?
Mhm.
Well, so there's basis in truth for that because we have medications like patches that are
Okay.
absorbed through the skin. So it's not really that it has to be rubbed. I think if you just took that medication and just put it on, or you crushed it up into a powder, did something to it, and then just put it on somebody's skin and just
Mhm.
put a dressing over the top of it, I think you would get the same effect. I mean, unless you could say that rubbing it would cause some kind of heat reaction that led it to be absorbed better. But we have plenty of medications that are given transdermally, which is just on a patch.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like even just like there's muscle ache medications that you just rub on and it absorbs through the skin. Like even
Yeah, it was
just
just
over the counter stuff.
Hmm.
It was just it intrigued me just because I don't know of any other. I don't know of a drug that people use recreationally the way Brandon writes fire moss, and so
It's actually more dangerous that way
oh
because
yeah,
people that use heroin, they have to shoot it
Mhm.
in their veins. So they have to have a needle. They have to get access to a vein somehow. So it's a little bit more of a challenge to do that. And if you could just take something and rub it in your fingers, or tape it to yourself, then it would probably be more easily addictable.
yeah, and so that was one that I was just like, oh, that's like it's a great bit of world building, but sucks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Another thing I wanted to ask about, this is just because we got off of Way of Kings, knobweed sap. So Kaladin, because of his background, knows that hey, there's this knobweed sap. We can use this to earn a little extra cash so that we can buy some medical supplies and stuff. I guess I just want to ask about the ancient medical supply chain. Like now we obviously have companies that deal with, like they're the middle ground for the supply chain and other things. But back then that would be trying to get the right stuff would be quite the ordeal. Like, do you think do you think that was sort of accurate to like the, I guess not field medicine, but like the doctor's supplies back in those days?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. I mean, I think, we have the FDA and we have a lot of regulations now for medications and drugs and pretty much anything. Even medical equipment is in some ways regulated, to make sure it's safe, to make sure that it's repeatable. And in those days, you wouldn't have that. It would be whatever the doctor could pick out of the forest, right? And you wouldn't know whether it was a strong medication, if it was potent. It was just whatever they gave you.
Clearly, knobweed sap does something because they were all using it. Then again, they used to all use leeches, so that's not the best.
I thought it was an antiseptic or something to that effect because they were working
Mm-hmm,
to keep rot spinner away.
Right, it was an antiseptic.
Okay.
Well, and then Kaladin learns that they're all in on they have a whole racket going to increase the price of it.
Yeah, don't tell them that it's just right there.
And natural, plant-based antiseptics do exist. I mean, that's what led to this kind of.
So
medicine.
One of those things is honey. If you didn't know, honey has antibacterial properties and is used for wound care.
The more I learn about the honey, the more I'm convinced bees are magic.
It's bee spit. I know. That's like the weirdest part that just makes me go, oh, that should not be sanitary, but there it is. Though there's also the twist where you're not supposed to give it to babies under a year old or something like that.
Right, because they can. Could be like botulinum toxin in them, so it can cause them to be paralyzed.
Yeah.
Well, that's not good.
Yeah, so I remember that with my kids that I was like, okay, they can have honey after this point. Not that I have tons of honey, but just that was something that I was always pretty vigilant
because it's
about.
such a small amount, it doesn't affect adults, but babies it has a potential effect on.
Yep.
That is so weird. I had no clue. Yeah, bees are magic. I've come around.
Oh yeah.
I had no clue. So another thing that was interesting about the knobweed sap with them and Kaladin sort of like training them how to do it, and we start getting Kaladin teaching them field medicine. What's sort of the difference between the approach to, say, the surgery room of Lyran to, the field medicine you have to do on a battlefield?
You just don't have the stuff. You have to make do with what you have. And that's the challenging part of it. And also, even in modern medicine, there's a lot of discussion about, like, for example, like rescue squads, doing things in the field versus taking them to the hospital, or getting them to the hospital quicker. So it's the stay and play versus the scoop and run. And depending on how close you are, I think that's a factor, and how skilled and what equipment they have. But in most cases, I think the scoop and run is better than staying and playing.
Just getting them to the facilities where you actually have the best chance of.
Now, I mean, if you're in the middle of nowhere, if you're in the middle of a battle, obviously that's not going to be the same.
Yeah, you scoop and run, but where are you going to run?
Right.
Yeah.
Especially right after carrying a bridge. No, but like we see, because you were talking about that earlier, Kaladin's whole, and it's his entire character arc all the way through book 4. He has a really hard time with, blaming himself if he can't protect someone or save them out, after they get injured. And you talked about that a little bit. How do they actually, how do you actually get to that point where you can focus on the job and not let the failures weigh you down? That's got to be a weird part of the training,
especially if you're working in a trauma situation. I'll bet.
It's just experience. The more you do it, it in a way you kind of get numb to it a little bit.
You build up calluses.
Um, yeah, I mean, and I think the focus is on, okay, what can I do better next time, right? So you learn from it, and we have in training and also even in practice we have what we call M&Ms, which is morbidity and mortality conferences, where we talk about complications. We talk about a patient and it's presented, and the complication is presented, and then we talk about as a group what can be done to improve the system, whether it's a systems problem, whether it's somebody has a lack of knowledge or what have you. I mean, sometimes, and I would say in a lot of cases, there doesn't have to be something that is a problem. It's just that's just what ended up happening. But talking about it and then just kind of reflecting on it in the sense of what can we do better next time is a big part of the job.
Yeah. Well, and then you talk about preparing yourself for it. How do you even begin to, like, if you've messed up? Like, how do you even begin? Like, is it just sticking to that process-oriented thinking versus results-oriented? For me, that's the hard part, imagining it. I just can't imagine that pressure of someone's life in your hands.
I mean, I think everybody's is messed up at some point. I mean, I can't say that I know any healthcare provider that's not been in a situation when they feel like that they missed something or did something or didn't do something that led to a bad outcome. It's just part of the job. I think probably some people deal with it better than others. I think it's easy to lose confidence sometimes, but you just kind of have to keep pushing and having other people around you that you can talk about it with. So we talk about debriefing a lot after a situation like that. If somebody has if someone dies from like a code, which is what we call like a code blue, if somebody their heart stops and you have to go and try to revive them, the chances of that person getting revived is actually quite low. TV and movies would make you think otherwise, but in reality, if somebody gets to that point, the chances of you actually having a good outcome from that is not really that great. So after those situations, whether the patient survives or not, we always have to do a debrief involving the nurses, the doctors, anybody that's involved. And you talk about what happened. You talked about, what could have been different, if anybody had any comments about, hey, like we didn't do this very well. And I think that helps the process of kind of coping with it in some way. I mean, it's not like you're sitting down and having a kumbaya or anything like that, but I think in some ways it does help.
Well, it gives you an opportunity to kind of step back and distance yourself from it and look at it in a more clinical capacity almost.
Literally. Right. The way you're saying that, the move from Kaladin, from his focus from more physical medicine to the more mental side of it, and like the psychiatric side of it, it feels more natural when you put it that way. It feels like the natural step that he would take.
For Kaladin, maybe, but not in real life.
Not in real life. I just meant like from the way you described it, like, because that's one thing that, Kaladin has very good training from his father, but his father isn't a medical school. He's just a very experienced and clearly a very good surgeon.
Well, his father was trying to send him to medical school.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think the way that I see that happening is that he, I think he went to that place where all the ardents had like the kind of psych ward that they had, and he's seeing these people. And I don't know that it's so much that it's from his personality of not being able to let go of these things, but I think he sees himself in some of those people, and I think he wants to help them because he struggles with the same problems, and that's what draws him to it. Not necessarily the fact that he can't let go of people, and he wants to get away from like the physical medicine part of it, but and switch to the mental medicine. Yeah, I mean, I think it'd be
he sees a
interesting to
need.
know. Yeah, right. He's and in this world, clearly, psychiatric medicine is non-existent, right?
Yeah, it's a bare infancy.
I mean, Kaladin in this world invents group therapy.
Yeah.
Yeah, which, I mean, if you know anything about the history of asylums, it's actually very similar. It's clear Brandon took a page out of that, because the old school asylums, they really did think things like, okay, they're overstimulated. We need to put them in a room alone so that they don't get overstimulated. And it's like, oh, good, you've invented, isolated torture on accident.
Well, I mean, and we would do lobotomies.
Oh yeah.
And all the hysterical women too, like that was not great in the history too.
There's just ways of managing them rather than helping them.
Yeah, well, so nothing that was interesting about that, and it's clear, like, where they're a step back even from what we tend to consider like all the horror movie asylums. There's like, why are they always so big and gothic? I delved down a video series that went into the history of this. They started building, I can't remember what it was called, but where they make the buildings in sort of this this V shape with a lot of hard angles, and the reason for it was so they could put in more windows, because the first wave of asylum stuff where they just put them in a dark room and overstimulation, they learned, okay, this is clearly not helping. We're making them more crazy. And so they went down this route of, let's make sure they get a lot of sunlight. Let's build these buildings in such a way that we can have lots of windows, get them lots of sunlight, let them see out into the world. And it was a big focus. But the funny part of that is we now associate those style buildings with the horror movie asylums, because like they still were doing the electroshock therapy and all the other stuff. We learned that no, this isn't working at all. We're not very good at this yet.
Actually, electroshock therapy is still used today.
Yeah.
And it does work in some ways for depression.
It's very specific, and
it's far more controlled.
That's, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, that's sort of the story of medicine in general. It's they find an edge case where something works, they probably overuse it, and then realize, okay, no, that we went too far.
I mean, the pendulum swings. I think if you talk to anybody in medicine, they'll say that for a lot of issues, the pendulum will swing back and forth. We start doing one thing, we think, oh, we're doing this really, really well. And then we find out, oh, well, we're not doing the right thing. And then we're going to go back the other way around, which I think is what's happening with the opioid thing, right? We started out with, pain is a fifth vital sign, and we're going to give everybody pain medication. And then we find out, oh, people are getting addicted. So now we're in a world where I think it can be really hard to get pain medication. We focus on using non-opiate medications, other medications that aren't habit forming. But I think opiates have to be a part of that regimen. It's just a matter of where in the middle should we be, and the pendulum is swinging the other way right now.
It's a weird balancing act.
Well, and especially with the problem of literally everyone reacts to things differently. Mm-hmm. The same person who takes a flu shot, and inoculates them from the flu, the next person could overreact to it, and they have a worse flu than if they just gotten it naturally. And it's just different person to person, because unfortunately everyone is a sample size of one, and that's not very good for a medical trial.
I've also, I keep hearing stuff about how they're only now, with different medical fields, finally going, oh, wait, we should actually test this with women, not just men, because women react differently than men.
I think most of the studies that we use are kind of all comers, including men and women. I think that a lot of trials, especially in trauma, come from the military, so from wartime. And in those cases, obviously, you're going to have a lot more men in those trials. But in other trials that we use, big landmark trials, include women too.
Well, I've been looking into ADHD stuff occasionally because both my kids have ADHD, and so, but I've seen several different things about how like the typical signs of ADHD are much more usually skewed towards the male signs.
And so they've
they present differently. Yeah,
they present differently, and there are women who present the same way as the men do, but it's a lot of women are not getting diagnosed or have not been diagnosed because they weren't presenting the same way.
It shows up and they think, oh, what a well-behaved little child, or
but she's just in her own world, and it's like, no, she was ADHD.
There's plenty of things that women present differently. I mean, heart attacks is one of them. It's pretty well known that women can present differently than men with heart attack symptoms.
Because it's what is it? Is it like, what is the signs for women? Because I can't even remember. Because I know for men it's usually the left arm or something, right?
So left-sided chest pain going to the left arm or into the left jaw. I mean, it's not that women can't have those symptoms, I think, but women are more likely to not have those symptoms and present with something like shortness of breath.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, and I've learned just through experience. I don't really talk about this much, but about 8-10 years ago, I had a heart attack, and apparently, as a diabetic, signs are even different.
Yes,
with
yes,
different
absolutely.
Conditions, and so
right. So people with diabetes also can present differently too. Mm-hmm. So they teach us those things and say, well, don't think of heart attacks as just people that have chest pain.
Exactly.
There are equivalents.
Well, and that's just the problem. Again, it goes to the whole, every time you think you have a solution, you then find another way to slice that cake. And then you're just like, oh, wait, no, it looks different when I look at this strata as opposed to that one. It's messy. That's why I prefer physics. It's a much less messy science. I don't have to worry if the rock I'm throwing is diabetic.
Yeah, but when your science goes wrong, there are big implications.
Okay, just the one time, it's chemistry you really got to watch out for. That was one of those things we were discussing with my friend who got a chemistry degree. We were laughing at like all the like empty space that was in the art building, because the art building, has all these displays and stuff. And he's like, although I guess your physics building, like they have that big room for the giant pendulum display and, the other displays. I'm like, yeah, they don't have any displays in the chemistry building for some reason. They're worried I don't know what's wrong. Chemistry, not a toy.
We should probably take a break.
Yeah. Well, and when we come back, let's talk about some of the more fun side, because we let things get a little heavy here. All right, we are back. So we covered the real heavy stuff. Let's go to the more fun stuff, the mechanics stuff that's interesting. Shu Manchu in our chat proposed a question that I actually have wondered, although I don't think I put the technical terms to it. I'll just say it the way they said it. What do you think about the surge of progression for healing? Are people who are healed in this manner, quote unquote, using up the capacity to recover by making them more vulnerable to cancer and the telomere reduction?
So you'll have to remind me what's the mechanism for the surge of progression and healing?
It just heals somehow.
It's just heals.
It's just the stormlight. It's what it's what Lift does. It's what
Renarin uses. But
Renarin. I kept trying to say TN.
No, it's Renarin. And it's usually like it only works if they have like not accepted it to a certain point. Like, because Lopin says he's one-armed, but he knows that he's supposed to have the other.
It's identity based.
Identity. Okay, so you're saying this is the same as identity based healing?
Mm-hmm. Now, well, because the thing is, Lopin, it's not the surge of progression that heals Lopin.
Well, okay,
that's being a radiant holding Stormlight.
But it seems to operate on the same mechanics.
Yeah.
I know that there are certain things that can't be healed after a certain point.
Like with Rissyn, like how she doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
Right, but the issue is that she sees herself as a quad, so she is a quad. So it doesn't...
They also talk about
when you say you mean quadriplegic?
Quadriplegic, yeah.
Correct.
Okay. They also talk about, though, like with the...
Well, she's not a quad, is she? She's a para.
She has her
she's
arms.
para. Yeah, she's
a para. She's a para.
But they do talk about how getting the edge dancers in, they want to get them in as fast as possible because after a while, they can't. There are certain things they can't.
Right,
heal.
right. So I don't know that type of healing would affect what he's saying as far as using up their capacity to recover, because that healing is based on a much more deeper level, like spiritual level, of the spiritual realm.
So you don't think it affects the cellular telomeres?
No, I don't think so, because it's at a level that's even deeper than that.
It almost feels like soul casting for a human, where you take something, their cognitive vision of themselves, and you pull it into the physical realm.
Right. Now, I would say that pewter healing is different. That might actually affect like telomere length and things like that, because
because they do burn, they burn it subconsciously. Like their body sort of seems to understand that if you're injured, burn pewter.
Right. So my understanding of pewter healing is that it just accelerates your natural healing. So you cut yourself on your arm, it heals up eventually, right? So it takes maybe a week or so, and it heals. If you were burning pewter, then that would just heal up faster.
And keep you more stable, it seems.
The way I see pewter healing also is it's almost like what it does is the pewter stabilizes your body so that your body, rather than spending its resources keeping you alive, can spend those same resources on healing you.
I like that. That makes sense.
Because it feels like pewter is more based around durability, and
pain tolerance
and prevention of wounds rather than active healing. So it feels almost like what pewter will do is it comes in and it's like it puts up a framework, like girders and stuff, to hold you up, and then the parts of your body that would normally be spent doing that can just be like, okay, I don't have to worry about that. I can do this instead.
But it can't heal things that normally wouldn't heal. For example, like if you cut your arm off, pewter healing isn't going to grow that arm back, whereas identity-based healing could.
Yeah. Well, I think the big tell there is the fact that they talk about how thugs, a lot of times you got to watch out for is they're burning so much pewter in a fight, they don't know that they're supposed to be down and healing, and they die of blood loss, but the pewter has allowed them to ignore the warning signs that everyone else gets to ignore.
Well, and then you see Kelsier and Ven do their pewter drag.
Pewter dragging, man.
But like, they've had that structure holding them up. And then finally, they've gotten used to it. They're putting their body through its paces. And then suddenly that framework goes away. And it's just like, okay, I really need to heal this.
It's like using steroids. In a lot of ways. So
did reading about pewter dragging stress you out as a medical professional?
No. I mean, I think that it's a different kind of healing. I think it's not healing that we would think of in terms of like magical healing. I think it's like an accelerated. It just makes your body better at it.
What it reminded me of was using caffeine to pull an all-nighter, where you're pushing your body beyond what it's actually supposed to do. Mentally, you feel like you can do more than you're typically able to handle. And then suddenly you're just like, oh no, I went through that. My body is experiencing those effects, and I do need to recover from it.
Right.
Yeah. So then there's another type of healing that we don't talk about, because we also have the gold healing from Gold Farukami, but that seems to be very much in the same light as progression or just regular Knight's Radiant healing. Resealing from Forgery is very interesting. In that Shai talks about resealing, how you really have to know your stuff, because you're like repairing a vein that was severed. And you have to really know your anatomy to make sure you're doing that right. But resealing's interesting because it's also identity based, just like these others, but it's a very temporary identity base. And so I'm trying to wrap my head around the idea. Like, let's say you cut an artery in your leg, but they had a resealer there. They stamp you with a very specific stamp to repair that artery, and you have to keep pressing it. But at a certain point, you're going to stop. So doesn't it seem like once you're done, the wound should open up again? Or, I don't know. There's some weird mechanic going on there that I don't fully understand, I think.
I'm not sure that would be the instance of resealing that would be prevalent, because I think that's something that you could actually just physically repair, right? I mean, if you had the know-how, you could physically repair a cut artery and it would be just fine. I think that when we see the resealing, it's about like mental issues, like in the Emperor's Soul, right?
He has the additional thing where he got shot through the head and clearly lost brain matter.
Mm-hmm. But his body was healed.
Yeah.
Right. So the body is working, but the mind isn't, and that's healing that you couldn't do with conventional ways, right?
Yeah. But it seems to me like just healing the conventional way, even still with resealing, I feel like you would have to know how long you need to do this before the wound opens up again. Because there is some identity-based thing going on.
To the point where your body views itself as being healed.
So you don't need to stamp yourself again, which is different from the other identity-based healing where it's just, we're going to get you to this ideal. Mm-hmm. This is, we're going to change your identity to someone who is healthy.
We're going to change your history.
It's a little bit around the corner, right? It's not. Yeah. It's not a straight line.
We're going to gaslight your body into healing itself.
That kind of is exactly what they do. Now that you mention it,
pretty much.
Yeah.
Man, that's weird. I hadn't thought of it in those terms, but yeah. Well, let's go to the Emperor's Soul. Obviously, you don't tend to deal with souls, but I gotta know. Do you think that's the Emperor?
I think it is. I mean, the way that I would see that is you basically repaired a part of the body that we can't normally repair, right? Mm-hmm. And the way that it's done just requires, basically he has to steel himself. It's like taking medicine for blood pressure, right? Your blood pressure is better when you take medicine, but if you stop taking that medicine, your blood pressure goes up again. So you have to keep taking it. So it's the same kind of a thing, except for the soul. And that's something that's a little bit abstract in our world, because
they don't really teach you that in medical school.
Yeah, no. I mean, there's definitely, you see patients that have had, like, say, traumatic brain injury, and they recover physically, but they're not the same person. Do you know about the story of Phineas Gage? Have you heard of that guy?
Maybe. I feel like
is that the guy with the railroad spike?
Yes, that's the railroad spike guy. So he was working on the railroad. This was probably the 1800s, and a railroad spike went through his frontal lobe, and he survived. And the idea, well, what came of it was basically they said the frontal lobe is responsible for your emotional, like, personality, and he was just not the same person anymore. He couldn't hold a job. He got angry all the time. And his friends all said that he wasn't the same person after that incident because his frontal lobe got injured.
Yeah. There's also when you start dealing with the brain, there's all sorts of weird stuff.
Well, there's a lot what we don't know about the brain, right?
Yeah.
So we don't know what makes Bill, what makes Amy, what makes Jordan, right? We're all different people, but we all have the same intestines, the same heart, the same whatever. But there's something in us that makes us individual.
And there's only so much experimentation you can do with that before you cross a moral line.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Yeah, people don't like being in psychological control groups.
Or messing up babies forever by not giving them contact and other things. And just, yeah. And I've heard cases of people who get, like, some kind of brain cancer and, like, their personality just switches or gets really weird, and that's how people kind of figure out that something's up with you, is that
Yeah. Well, because the tumor is growing in a place where it's affecting that part of the brain.
Yeah. Well, even just normal stuff like dementia and Alzheimer's. My maternal grandmother, she got dementia, and it was just like towards the end, it was just like, this isn't you. Like, it's not the same person, because you were this really kind person, but towards the end, she was short, she was rude, she was biting, and it's just like, yeah, the part of you that's you is sort of gone. And it was such a bizarre thing, because it makes you start asking, what is that thing that makes you you?
Well, and then, you're talking about Alzheimer's, the people, like, suddenly they'll have a moment of lucidity, and it's just sort of it's back. I don't know where it went. I don't know but it's going to go again. And it's mind-boggling.
It sounds awful.
Well, it was a weird, almost morose romance to my grandparents in the end, because my grandfather's body, he had no joke, 8 different heart events, 4 of them full-blown heart attacks, but he just kept not dying. We don't know what he's made out of, but clearly some tougher stuff. But, he couldn't get around at the end, but he was all there mentally. Whereas her body worked perfectly, but she was losing it mentally. And so the two of them together actually were one functional adult. And while they had both of them there, they actually could still function, because the strange thing is, she couldn't remember where anything was, but she could drive perfectly fine. They just passed all the driver's tests, not an issue. She knew all the traffic laws, but you ask her, we need to go to the grocery store. Where's that? And he's like, okay, well, I can, I'll give you directions. Mm-hmm. Although it made him a terrible backseat driver. If anyone other than her was driving, it was terrible. He literally fought with my little brother over the stick shift, which my brother loves that story. No, but it was interesting. So, but once he was gone, unfortunately, we had to, she needed to live with others. And so it was just interesting seeing what parts remain and what parts go. And when you get into Brandon's version of healing and what a person is, like, where we have identity and connection as these malleable forces in the Cosmere, things get bizarre. Yeah. I mean, heck, like the whole, well, if you just tap connection, suddenly you can speak a different language because your body thinks it's from here now.
Yeah.
And it's like, what's that? All right, here's another thing from Emperor's Soul. Had a lot more medical stuff that I realized when I started this. I want to talk about the spooky, scary skeletons. I want to talk about blood sealing. Gosh, what do you feel about using skeletons as warriors?
I mean, it's effective because they don't feel pain.
It's necromancy, Jordan. The word you're looking for is necromancy.
It's blood sealing, Bill. We're not troglodytes here.
You're asking a doctor how they feel about necromancy.
Yes, and I want his honest opinion on necromancy.
I've seen some memes that are like, I want to see a necromancer who's actually a doctor, but they're just late all the time. And they're really good at their job, but they're just late.
the Smedry version?
This is the Smedry version, exactly.
Well, but I don't know. Like, there's something to, like, what's holding that skeleton together? Like, do they still, because they don't have muscles, how's this thing moving?
The answer is magic.
I don't like that.
We're gonna go with magic. Yeah.
Okay, fine. Not magic then. Investiture. How's that?
Yeah. Well, but so in all seriousness, like, it sounds a lot like Awakening, like, at that point. But how? Like, that's the part, because we know so little about it. I'm very interested, because at least the lifeless, like, yeah, they have skeletons in them to have some biological component, but there's still like something solid around it. Like, it's not just the skeleton.
Well, they mention in there that you have to have the whole skeleton for it to work, right?
Yeah.
And they go to lengths of even building back bits that were damaged or lost, even in like parts where you wouldn't think would be necessary for a skeleton to move, right? So if a chunk out of their rib is gone, they should still be able to function, but they still build that little bit back. So there's something there in terms of investiture that's linking all the bones together to create an entity that's not just what you would consider to be like muscles or ligaments or whatever in a normal person. I think, what was it? She like smashes the vertebrae of one. Now that's something that you probably wouldn't be able to do much without, just from a physics standpoint. But
that's basically a connection point,
right? But they do mention about like ribs having chunks that are built back. So why would they do that if it wasn't necessary?
Well, and I think part of that is, again, tied into a little bit into identity. Right. It's like with awakening, the more something looks like something that's alive, the easier it is to awaken.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, before we end tonight, we can't end without talking about the best doctor in all the Cosmere. I want to talk about Dr. Ulam from Tress in the Emerald Sea. So, he's got an interesting bedside manner.
Yeah, I would say so.
Do you feel he went to medical school?
He certainly could have. They don't teach bedside manner in medical school.
Oh, they don't? Really?
Oh, I've noticed that with certain doctors.
No, they don't.
Man, okay. That seems like a mistake. But, okay, first of all, if you had the ability to just literally go into someone's body the way all Khandra can, because we also see, oh my goodness, Milan do that with, it was Mercy, right?
It's Mercy, yeah.
Yeah, it was Mercy. Go in and literally give her new capillaries and stuff using her own cells, sort of like stem cells, I would say.
Yeah, it's creepy.
Like, how hacks is he in terms of medicine?
I think Khandra are a special breed, so I would say many hacks.
Yeah. Were you reading that at all and getting a little jealous and then wondering what's wrong with you, or?
I mean, I think Khandra are one of those creatures that definitely have some really nice perks, let's just say.
If you were a Khandra, what type of skeleton would you have?
The only from what I know, I would say probably a human, right? I mean, I don't know that I have enough understanding of other skeletons.
Well, we can't go to the next section because it'll get us on a watch list where I ask you which human skeleton you would want. But
yeah, we're not going there. No.
I'm just saying, if you want to negotiate the rights for my bones, I'm listening.
Now, Ulam isn't Ulam the one who was also in Era 2 of Mistborn and was asking, can I have your X? Can I have your Y?
No, that was...
I know he showed up in Era 2. At least briefly.
I think that was Vendel, wasn't it?
It could be.
It could be Vendel.
Looking it up. I'm on the...
I think he was really respectful, and it was like, and like he kept mentioning to Wax that he was.
Yes,
like,
it is Vendel.
He's still there,
Yeah, because he has Breeze.
Like, yep, you can have mine.
Yeah, he's the one who has Breeze's hands.
So Vendel is Ulam?
No. It was
Ulam was in Era 2 because he's, according to the Coppermind, he's the one who talked to what's her name?
Palm?
Wayne's girlfriend.
Milan.
He was talking to her about, like, are you sure you want to do this with Wayne? Like, yeah, he was kind of talking to her about whether it was a good idea or not. I just couldn't remember if it was the same guy, but no, that was Vendel. You're
different one, yeah.
And he's named Ulam in
no, that I'm not sure about, but in the Coppermind it says that it was.
Oh.
It says he, alongside Tinsoon, warned Milan about her relationship with Wayne.
Okay, so. But he's named in Tress for sure.
Yeah. So that was in the Lost Metal.
Yeah, I don't know, because it was the far future. It was just very interesting that we have basically two doctors in the Cosmere, and one's like this really buttoned down thing, and the other one is a horror movie monster gone very right.
Well, I don't know that he was somebody that he was probably self-taught. I don't think he went to school.
But if anyone's going to know about physiology, it's going to be a Kandra.
Yeah. Ulam is basically if Frankenstein's monster and Dr. Frankenstein were the same person.
Yeah. No, but it does say something about the Kandra, because Milan she's not a doctor by any stretch of the imagination, but she was still able to do what is a pretty complicated surgery. I mean, she replaced parts of someone else's body and took out the poison and and she was able to do that kind of casually.
Well, I mean, to be an effective Kandra, you have to have an incredible understanding of anatomy. And they developed that understanding simply by encasing and digesting a creature's structure.
And we don't know how many bodies she's done that to, so she's had lots of experience to do it over and over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
Ulam is probably just a doctor because he calls himself that, not because he's actually a doctor.
Yeah.
You don't think he went to Kandra Medical School?
No, I think that he just has, like Bill was saying, just an unbelievable understanding of anatomy, which, outside of Kandra, if you're talking about like just humans, you're probably talking about doctors, right?
Like, you know how a lot of times people will hire a developer who's just trained on YouTube? This is the equivalent of that.
And he's probably the best doctor you could get, unfortunately.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I loved Ulam, and I know we're not going to get more of him probably, but I want more of Ulam. He was my favorite character in Tress.
Since he's a Kandra, I feel like we're more likely to get more of him than a lot of the other characters from Tress.
Well, you know my policy. I want Brandon to give someone the right to just start telling pirate stories on the Emerald Sea, and just okay, you can't do anything that affects anything else, but feel free to tell a pirate story.
He could do it on any of the other seas because there's like all those other oceans.
Oh yeah,
explore. So.
Yeah, the sequels write themselves. Tress in the Crimson Sea, Tress in the Black Sea.
Oh no, I'm thinking more like Pirates of the Caribbean. We're gonna have a Spac Jarrow show up, and it's gonna be amazing.
Spac Jarrow.
Wow.
Oh my goodness, we could do Pirates of Black Water, but it's now Pirates of Black
Spores.
Black Spore.
Of Midnight Essence.
They did explore the Black Sea. They did
Yeah,
Pirates of Midnight Essence.
Yeah.
Dang, that sounds like an amazing metal band.
Dude, that would be a good nerdcore band.
Oh man.
I like it.
Did we ask that last question that you had in there?
No, we haven't. That's what I want to end on. Okay. So, you are a healer. What order of Knights Radiant did you come out on the quiz?
I came out as an Elves Caller.
Okay, excellent.
Jordan, you're not alone.
Went straight. I'm not alone. Knew it. I knew you were a man of culture and taste.
We're half and half because Bill and I are edge dancers. There we go.
Art and science. There we go.
I want to say my second was Windrunner, but Elves Caller was on top.
And Windrunner makes a lot of sense.
I could see a lot of medical practitioners being Windrunners.
Yeah, or Dustbringers by the way they're described.
I can definitely see Dustbringers. And you'd want them to be a very good Dustbringer to be a doctor.
Cauterize the wound. But no. All right. Well, I have to say, I'm rather pleased with that. We love hearing from everyone. So if you have questions you'd like to send us, you can email us at cosmerstudies@gmail.com. We might read them as part of the show. Or if you come on live, we might read them as part of the show, as you heard earlier. So you should definitely come live as well. You can always mail us anything at our P.O. Box at the Sandersonian Institute of Cosmic Studies, P.O. Box 970063, Orem, Utah 84097. We all have our own little personal projects. Roger, do you have anything you want to promote?
No, I really don't. I kind of do my thing. I go to work, and that's pretty much. I'm kind of boring.
Any recommendations? Food, book. Maybe a television show you don't think gets enough love.
Nothing comes to mind right now.
All right, we'll work on
Okay.
you later. All right, Amy, where can we find you outside the podcast?
Okay, so my Facebook is Coincidence Cosplay and Props. My Twitter is at Coincidence Cosp because my name is too long. My Instagram is at Coincidence_Cosplay. My TikTok is at Coincidence Cosplay, all one giant word. And my website is www.coincidencecosplay.com. I have not posted anything for a little bit, but I keep saying I'm going to actually post, and I'm going to actually keep trying to do it. But I actually went and I placed second at a little mini con at the mall near us.
Oh,
And
was that Authors in the Wild?
No, it was Crossroads Fandom Fest
Okay.
at Southtown.
I hadn't heard about
off of
that one.
Southtown. I hadn't heard of it either, but my friend ended up being a judge there, and there was no nepotism involved, but I got second place. So it was, yeah. And I was with my top.
What an oddly specific denial.
I really wasn't. There were other judges, and yeah, so there were only 10 contestants. So it was what it was.
Congrats.
But yeah, so and I got a gift certificate for a store there for Level 1 Gaming, I think is what it's called, and so I got some cool stuff from there.
nice.
So I was like, oh sweet, I get to buy random geeky things. Okay, that's cool.
Nice.
So that was what I did, and I will try and actually keep posting about things like I have been trying to. So yeah, that's me.
All right. Bill, what about you?
I've got another podcast. My friend Dylan and I talk about board games. It's called The Innkeeper's Table. We post new episodes every other Friday. Our most recent episode, we did a game spotlight on a game called Black Sonata, which is
Also a good metal band name.
Which is actually about, if you're familiar with Shakespeare, there's a mysterious woman that he's written many of his sonnets about and to, and a lot of people are still trying to figure out who this woman was. There's like a lot of names that have been put forward as possibilities, but it's a single player game where you're actually basically trying to figure out who this woman is. So it's a logic deduction type thing. It's pretty cool. So it's one that I haven't played, and so the episode kind of flows as Dylan pitching this game to me and trying to sort of trying to sell me on the game, which I thought was kind of a fun thing.
Yeah, it is.
Also, completely non-project related, or produced content related. I made a brisket this weekend, and I feel it turned out very, very well. So
I'd give you 4 stars on Yelp.
Briskets are hard to do.
Oh, I think I cooked it for like 18 to 20 hours. It was great.
Wow.
Yelp alone goes up to 4 stars, right? I didn't accidentally insult Bill by
I'm not sure.
I think Yelp goes up to 5 stars.
I think Yelp goes to 5
stars.
And
5 stars on Yelp. I greatly enjoyed it.
And Jordan's from Texas, so he's.
Oh, I love me some brisket. All right. You guys can find me everything under the name Splice Stream. Recently we've been doing the 20 questions again. If you guys can get to that was amazing. My Texan accent just came out in like all one flow there. If you all can just make sure to guess to 3,000 hours, we've been doing video game 20 questions, which has been a ton of fun on my streams, but we'll do Cosmere 20 questions if we can get there before the next episode. So make it happen. I've already put some of the list together. I'm halfway done. It's going to be good. Also, I actually did a project recently with Bill and a lot of our old college buddies called I Think We Overleveled. We did our first episode. Right now it's just on my YouTube channel, and it was a lot of fun. We just talked about the console wars of the 90s, and it went into a lot of weird directions, but it was fun.
It's basically a bunch of middle-aged nerds reminiscing about the good old days.
Yeah, I forget. What did I say the next topic was? I'm forgetting all of a sudden.
Had something to do with, is it the controller one, or is it the game
No.
That's
right. We're going to talk about favorite game you've never played is going to be the next episode. Because I think we all have that. Games that we have a weird fandom for, yet somehow we've never played the game involved. And so we're doing that Wednesday nights. It's far less organized than this is, but it's a lot of fun. So I highly recommend you watch. We might eventually build another channel for that, but right now it's just on my regular YouTube channel. Come check it out. If you're part of it, with part of like our age group, I think you're going to like it.
And honestly, if you're younger, I think you'll like it too, just as a completely different perspective from what you're used to in the area.
Yeah. Last time was just fun to go through all the old video game commercials.
Oh man.
Oh, some of those were it's just a different time, and the companies were a lot more cutthroat to each other back then.
Yes, they were.
All right. So for those of you who want to support the Sandersonian Institute of Cosmere Studies, but you can't become patrons, just let your friends know about the show. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast, like and subscribe, all that. But especially right now, get us over that hump to 3,000. If some of you are like, I only have time to listen once this week, try do it on YouTube. Do it for us. Don't you love us? Come on. You could also head over to store.streamelements.com/Cosmere Studies if you want to buy the sickest of SICS merch, including one of these days, we're going to sell that blanket. It's going to happen. I put it there on a whim, and someone's going to buy it, and I'm going to be very happy. All right. So final thoughts on medical stuff at the Cosmere. Roger, you get first pick at it.
I just really like to see, all the different types of healing that are in existence, and they all kind of have their own spin on things. I definitely want to see more of the resealing. I think that's going to be the most interesting to me.
All right, Bill.
Rather than delving into the Cosmere, I'm just curious if Roger has any favorite medical shows or any shows that he feels are particularly egregious.
Yeah.
So I will say that the most probably accurate medical show is Scrubs.
Okay.
Really?
Yes.
Interesting.
They kind of capture the feel of like an intern or a resident and all that, I think quite well. But obviously it's a show, so there's definitely things that are not true, but stuff like House or Grey's Anatomy, ER, I mean, they're just not accurate. I think entertaining, but not accurate.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, for example, in House, like they're taking specimens and looking at them under the microscope themselves. Most of us don't do that.
Mm-hmm. You go to a specialist.
You have people who do that for you.
Yes, we have the lab people who do that for us.
Yeah, I've got we've actually, all of us, I think, have a good friend who is a lab worker who, and it's just like, yeah, they know what they're doing. They've trained for this, and there's a reason that they're the ones looking at it.
And my husband is actually, his job is helping to train computers to look at samples of like blood and different things like that to help speed it up for the technicians. So, very good.
So yeah, I think Scrubs is probably the most accurate.
The comedy. Okay.
Cool. I love that. That's awesome. Cool.
That is.
Question asked, question answered.
Amy, anything?
If I was going to go to any doctor in the Cosmere, I think I'd go to an Elantrian because they can just make it better.
Yeah, but if they mess up, you ain't coming back from that.
Well, then I'd just be like, okay, just kill me now. Just you can do it fast.
Of your villain's arc.
I mean, that is the start of a villain's arc in Elantris.
But yeah, it'd be nice.
I want to go to Ulam. He'll creep me out, but I know the job will get done, and I might get a good price on my bones.
See, I would go to probably what I'm guessing is like the 80s level Roshar, where they've got what's the
gold
device.
Medallions.
They've got the gold medallions, so it's just like I take it, I heal.
Oh, geez Louise, I'm already donating plasma. If I could donate actual health, I could probably make a mint. A reminder, Jordan right now is unemployed and looking for a job. If you need someone who edits videos, let me know. All right. That's my final thought. All right. In addition to live episodes of the show on youtube.com/Cosmere Studies every other week on Monday nights, listeners can find our videos on YouTube or the audio versions of the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or just about anywhere you can find a podcast by simply searching the term Cosmere Studies. You can also follow us on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and under the profile Cosmere Studies. We're through an and in there. However, remember, please watch a lot on YouTube this week as we try and get over 3,000 hours watched. If we do it by next episode, I'm doing that 20 questions Cosmere night, and I think you're going to enjoy it. For our next episodes, the Save the Words campaign is going to be over, it looks like, And so we're going to go over each and every report that Senecald, I think I pronounced that right, our favorite new Apprentice World Singer, made on each order of the Knights Radiant. So make sure to join us when we stream it live in 2 weeks on Monday, March 11th, 2024 at 7:30 p.m. Pacific Time, 10:30 p.m. Eastern at youtube.com/Cosmere Studies. On behalf of Amy, Bill, Roger, and myself, thanks for listening. And remember, there's always another secret.